Imagine opening your eyes and finding yourself standing in a medieval town almost 700 years ago. The year is around 1300 AD. The sun is disappearing behind the stone walls, the streets are becoming darker, and the heavy wooden gates are about to close. You have no phone, no electricity, no hospital nearby, no way to call for help if something goes wrong. Tonight you will sleep in a world where darkness is dangerous, fire can destroy everything you own, and a simple illness can become a fight for survival. The room waiting for you is cold. The bed is uncomfortable. The night is not peaceful. And before sunrise, you will discover something modern people have almost forgotten: how difficult it was to survive an ordinary night in the Middle Ages. This is not a story about kings or battles. This is the story of an ordinary person. Trying to survive one ordinary night, the sun is slowly disappearing behind the walls of the medieval town. You stand outside a massive wooden gate, watching the last rays of daylight fade across the fields. The road behind you is empty. The forest that looked peaceful during the afternoon now feels completely different. The year is somewhere around the 13th century. You look around, searching for the things that make modern life feel safe. There are no street lights, no glowing windows from electric lamps, no emergency services, no way to contact anyone if something goes wrong. Only darkness is coming. And darkness in the Middle Ages was not just an inconvenience. It changed the entire way people lived. For most people today, night is simply a time when the lights turn on, but for medieval people, the setting sun marked a dramatic change. Once natural light disappeared, movement became more difficult, work stopped, and danger increased. The town ahead of you is your only chance to find shelter. But there is a problem. The gates are closing. Medieval towns were often surrounded by defensive walls because security was a constant concern. These walls protected people from raiders, thieves, and enemy armies. At night, many towns restricted movement by closing their gates and controlling who entered. If you arrive too late, you may have to spend the night outside. And that is something you do not want. Outside the walls, you are exposed to the cold, unpredictable weather and the dangers of traveling after dark. Roads that were already difficult during the day became far more dangerous at night. You hurry toward the entrance. The guards look at you carefully. A stranger arriving after sunset is not someone people immediately trust. In the medieval world, information traveled slowly. There were no identity cards, no online records, and no instant communication. A person's reputation and the people who could vouch for them mattered greatly. After a brief conversation, you are finally allowed inside. The heavy wooden gate closes behind you. The sound echoes through the street. For a moment, you feel safe. But then you look around. The town is nothing like the cities you know today. The streets are narrow. The buildings line over the pathways. The air carries unfamiliar smells from animals, cooking fires, and crowded homes. The darkness between buildings feels deeper than anything you have experienced before. You have entered the medieval night, and you still need to survive until morning. Your first priority is simple. Find somewhere to sleep. Today, if you arrive in an unfamiliar city, you can search for a hotel, check reviews, compare prices, and reserve a comfortable room. In the Middle Ages, things were very different. A traveler depended on local knowledge, reputation, and luck. If you were wealthy, you might have private accommodation in a noble household or a well-equipped residence. But for ordinary travelers, merchants, pilgrims, and workers, an inn was often the best option. You walk through the streets searching for a place with a warm fire and a locked door. Finally, you see a small wooden sign hanging outside a building. When in, you enter. The first thing you notice is not comfort. It is noise. People are eating. Animals are moving nearby. Travelers are talking. The smell of smoke fills the room. This is not a modern hotel lobby. A medieval inn was a place where people gathered, ate, traded information, and rested after long journeys. But privacy was a luxury. For many ordinary travelers, sleeping meant sharing space with strangers. A private bedroom with a comfortable bed was not something most people experienced. You are shown where you will sleep. A small room, a wooden frame, a mattress filled with straw or other natural materials. A rough blanket. That is your bed for the night. The straw mattress beneath you is far from what we would consider comfortable today. It can be uneven, hard, and filled with dust. Wealthier people could afford better bedding, including mattresses made with more expensive materials, but ordinary people lived with much simpler conditions. You place your belongings beside you. Then you realize something. You are not alone. Another traveler is already preparing to sleep nearby. In some medieval sleeping arrangements, sharing beds or sleeping spaces was not unusual, especially where space was limited. Privacy was not considered the same way it is today. The idea of having an entire room to yourself was a privilege. You lie down and pull the blanket closer. The fire in the room begins to weaken. The temperature drops. The wooden walls make strange sounds as the night becomes colder. Outside, the town grows quieter. But it is not silent. You hear footsteps, a distant voice, the movement of animals, the crackling of the fire. You close your eyes, hoping to finally rest. But this is only the beginning of your night. Because the biggest challenges of surviving the Middle Ages are not waiting outside the walls. They are already inside the room with you. Great will continue with the same immersive documentary style. For Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, we move deeper into the night. The viewer is now inside the medieval room, and the focus shifts from finding shelter to actually surviving the night. You finally lie down. For the first time since entering the medieval town, you think you might be able to rest. But within minutes, you realize something. This is not a place designed for comfort. The bed beneath you feels nothing like the soft mattresses people sleep on today. There is no memory foam. No clean sheets changed every morning. No temperature-controlled room. Only a wooden frame, a layer of rough material beneath you, and a blanket that has probably been used many times before. For ordinary people in the Middle Ages, sleeping was not about luxury. It was about survival. Most beds were simple constructions made from locally available materials. Poorer households often used mattresses stuffed with straw, reeds, or other natural materials. Wealthier families could afford better bedding, including mattresses filled with more expensive materials. But for most people, a good night's sleep depended less on comfort and more on having enough warmth to survive the cold. You pull the blanket closer. The room is darker now. The fire that warmed the room earlier has weakened, and the cold begins to return. Medieval homes were not built like modern houses. Many buildings had gaps that allowed cold air to enter. Windows were limited, and glass was expensive, meaning many openings were covered with shutters or other materials rather than modern sealed windows. The wind outside does not feel far away. You can feel the night around you. You turn over, trying to find a comfortable position. Then you notice another problem. The room is not as clean as you expected. Today, we're used to the idea of private bedrooms, freshly washed bedding, and controlled indoor environments. Medieval people lived in a much closer relationship with their surroundings. Animals, people, smoke, food, and waste were all part of daily life. In crowded homes and inns, keeping everything perfectly clean was extremely difficult. Small insects were a common problem. Fleas and lice were widespread historical concerns, affecting people across different social classes. They were not simply a sign of being poor. In a world without modern insect control and frequent washing practices, these problems were difficult to eliminate. You feel something moving near the blanket. You immediately open your eyes. For a moment, you wonder what it is. A mouse, an insect, something else. You look around the dark room. Everyone else is sleeping, or at least trying to, because the medieval night is not silent. There's always something happening. A person coughing, a wooden beam cracking, an animal moving nearby, someone walking outside. Your mind begins to notice every sound. And that is when you understand something important. The greatest challenge of the medieval night is not only what is happening around you. It is the fact that you are never truly alone. The fire is almost gone. The room has become colder. You wake up suddenly. For a few seconds, you don't know where you are. Then reality returns. You are not in a modern bedroom. There is no electric light beside the bed. No phone, no clock, no easy way to know the time. Only darkness. This was one of the biggest differences between medieval life and modern life. Today, darkness is something we can control. We can turn on lights instantly. But for medieval people, darkness shaped daily behavior. Night changed the way people moved, worked, and interacted. A simple walk through town after dark could become a serious challenge. The streets were difficult to navigate. Crime was a concern. And without modern lighting, every shadow looked different. Inside the room, you hear a sound. A wooden door moving. Footsteps outside. Someone speaking quietly. Your imagination begins to create possibilities. This was a world where stories of ghosts, spirits, and supernatural dangers were a normal part of culture. People did not understand many natural events the way we do today. A strange noise in the darkness could become something frightening. But fear was not the only danger. Fire was one of the greatest threats in medieval settlements. Most homes depended on fire for warmth, cooking, and light. But open flames inside buildings made accidents common. A single mistake could turn a small fire into a disaster. In towns where buildings were packed closely together, flames could spread rapidly. That is why many communities developed rules about fire safety and nighttime watch systems. Some towns had night watchmen who patrolled streets, calling out the hours and watching for danger. Their job was simple: make sure the town survived until morning. You look toward the small window. Outside, the world is completely different. No traffic, no city lights, no constant noise from machines. Just darkness. For a moment, you understand something that modern people rarely experience. The night is truly dark, and humans are not naturally comfortable in complete darkness. Every sound matters. Every movement feels important. You pull the blanket closer and wait. The night is not even halfway finished. The coldest hours are still ahead. The night feels endless. You open your eyes again. You are not sure how long you have been asleep. Minutes, hours. Without a clock beside you, time feels different. The only thing you know is that the darkness outside is still complete. This is the part of the night when the human mind begins to struggle. The fire has almost disappeared. The room is colder. Every small sound becomes impossible to ignore. A wooden floor creaks. Someone moves in their sleep. A horse makes a noise outside. A distant dog begins barking. In the modern world, these sounds would probably mean nothing. But in a medieval town, where darkness covered everything beyond the small circle of firelight, they carried a different weight. You begin to understand why nighttime created so many fears. The Middle Ages were a deeply religious society, and people often explained the unknown through the beliefs and traditions of their time. Dark forests, abandoned roads, strange noises, and unexplained events were often connected with stories of spirits, supernatural beings, and warnings from the unknown. Whether these fears were real or imagined, the feeling was the same. The night belonged to uncertainty. You look toward the door. A simple wooden door. No modern lock system. No security cameras. No emergency button. Just a barrier between you and everything outside. For people living in medieval towns, security depended heavily on community, reputation, and local protection. That is why night watchmen became an important part of many towns. They walked through streets after dark, watching for fires, criminals, and other dangers. Their voices could sometimes be heard announcing the hours or warning people of problems. But even with guards watching outside, the night remained a vulnerable time. You hear footsteps passing the building. For a moment you hold your breath. Then the sound disappears. Silence returns, and that silence reminds you of something else. The medieval night was not only dangerous because of what could happen. It was dangerous because help was far away. Today, if something goes wrong, people can call for assistance within seconds. In the Middle Ages, distance and communication could decide everything. An injury, illness, or accident during the night could become a serious problem. There were no modern hospitals waiting around the corner. No ambulance arriving at your door. No guarantee that help would come before morning. You close your eyes again. But sleep does not come easily, because now you are thinking about every possible danger. The cold, the darkness, the fire, the unknown. You begin counting the hours until sunrise. But the longest part of the night is still waiting. Slowly, the darkness begins to change. At first, you barely notice it. The room is still cold. The fire is still weak. But the blackness outside the window begins to fade. A small amount of light appears on the horizon. Morning is coming. After hours of darkness, the first signs of sunrise feel almost unbelievable. The medieval world begins to wake up. A person nearby moves. A fire is rebuilt. Animals begin making noise. The town slowly returns to life. For many medieval communities, the rhythm of the day was closely connected to natural light and religious routines. Church bells would eventually become one of the sounds that structured daily life in many European towns, marking important moments and calling communities together. The streets that felt dangerous only hours before now begin filling with movement. Merchants prepare their goods. Workers begin their tasks. Farmers return to their daily responsibilities. The same town that seemed frightening at night now looks completely different under the morning sun. You step outside. The cold air hits your face. You look back at the building where you spent the night. It does not look impressive. It was not comfortable. It was not luxurious. But it protected you until morning. And that alone was valuable. You survived one night in the Middle Ages. But now you understand something important. The challenge of medieval life was not one single danger. It was the combination of everything. The darkness, the cold, the lack of privacy, the limited medical knowledge, the constant effort required just to stay safe and comfortable. Modern life has removed many struggles that medieval people accepted as normal. Clean water, electricity, heating, medicine, instant communication. These things feel ordinary today because we grew up with them. But experiencing one night without them reveals something surprising. The past was not simply a different time. It was a completely different way of living. And if one ordinary night felt this difficult, imagine what an entire lifetime would have been like.